Hey, good morning to those of you out there on the West Coast. Good afternoon to those of you here on the East Coast with me. It's a beautiful day out here near the Chesapeake Bay. I'm out by Navair, Patuxent River, if you know that area, Navpax there. And so I'm excited to get started with today's training. Let me just turn off some of my scroll bar things here. Okay, in today's training, we're going to be talking about 2024 goal setting for government contractors. Really, this is vitally important that you set a goal, because if you have no goal, then you have no direction. You don't know where you're going. I want you to be able to determine where you're going, and then people like me can help you get there. A lot of small businesses, and this might be you, and I'd be curious if you're willing to admit this in the chat, but a lot of us don't hit goals in like 2023. We're coming to the end of 2023 here. Today is November 13th, I think. And a lot of us are not even going to hit our goals, or some of us didn't even set goals for the 2023 year that we just went through, right? And when you don't set goals, how can you possibly hit them? But other times you don't hit your goals and you don't quite know why. What I want to address today is not just setting a goal, but how do you sit there and ensure that you hit it? But it comes down to making sure you don't leave that up to chance. One of the things that the reason I put this picture of this, astronaut flying to the moon, and usually astronauts are inside the rocket, not on top of the rocket. But if you don't know this, when they shoot a rocket off to go to the moon, immediately it's off course, and it's off course almost the entire trip, right? And the idea is that you have all these thousands of people who are tracking this rocket ship going to the moon, and they're constantly course correcting it. They're constantly putting it back on track. So they've set a goal. We're going to the moon, right? And as the rocket goes, if things are off, they constantly are measuring it, which is what we'll talk about today, constantly measuring it and readjusting that rocket so that they can achieve their goal. If they just set a goal and fired and forgot, then there's a good chance that the rocket would miss the moon and that astronaut would be sailing long past Mars out of the solar system. And so what I want you to be paying attention to is that you need to set a goal, like going to the moon or making $10 million next year, and then reverse engineer the steps all the way back. What do we need to do? And that's what I'm going to walk you through, is how to reverse engineer the steps to achieve your revenue goals. So in today's training, I'm going to cover down on understanding why goal setting is so important. And then we'll dive into what goals I suggest that you put in place for 2024. And then finally, I want to wrap up with KPIs, or key performance indicators, that you can use to track your progress. Just like that guy heading to the moon, right? We need to monitor the trip the whole way. And I want to give you the KPIs that allow you to go, oh, we're off track. We're not going to get to the moon or the 10 million. How do we put it back on track? And so that's what we'll wrap up today with. If you don't know who I am, my name is Neil McDonnell. I'm the president of the GovCon Chamber of Commerce, and I want to welcome you to my federal sales training, where I provide tips for success in the federal market. I spent 20 years in the federal market as a small business owner, and since 2018, I've been teaching people like you that government contracting is not a secret. It's just a process. When we follow a process A to Z, we're going to have repeatable, predictable results, which is exactly what I want for you and your company. Start off today by just putting your company name into the chat. Let buyers know who you are. Let the other people in the live and the replays, let them know who you are and that you're open to connecting. So put your company name into the chat, and then also put your core competency, 2 or 3 words that just say what you do, right? I do IT project management as an example, or we do data analytics, things like that, right? Elevator maintenance. It doesn't matter what it is, but just use a couple of words. Make it easy for us to remember. The more words you put, the less chance we'll remember. And then the last thing is just remember, again, that this is your community. Engage with the people that are in the chat. If somebody is saying something that seems relevant, give it a thumbs up. Don't be standing back in the back of the room. Come right to the front of the room. Clap when somebody says something good. Or in this case, put a thumbs up on the chat. The other thing is, again, invite. If everybody invited one person, we would have another 100 people in here in these trainings, right? So I do these trainings and I bring in, I think we're going to have about 100 people live today, and then we'll have the people on the replay. But if you invite more people, you're building your community. Don't leave the building just up to me, right? I'm happy to do it. My team is happy to do it, but let's make it a bigger community for you and the others in this community. If you don't recognize this graph that I have on my slide, I have a whole bunch of different trainings, but I teach the process in federal government success to drive towards your revenue. Follows a 7-step process. And when you follow the 7-step process, you're going to hit the sales goals you want. And so take time to learn about that. But basically, the first 3 steps are how you get started building relationships. Relationships are the key to every part of your success. And when you have that, you're going to be able to go on a wheel of success in earning revenue. Again, watch another training. You can tag me in the chat, say, can you point out that training, and maybe somebody in there will add it for you. Okay, I move at a fire hose pace. If you haven't been into my training before, don't worry about it. You can take screenshots. I don't do slide sharing except for once in a while because it's just too much work for me. But the replays will be available so you can watch it again at half speed. But I move really fast, but my goal is to give you tactical tips as we go forward. I wanted to just start off getting all of us level set on why is it important to set goals for 2024. And by the way, why is it important to set them now in November? Don't wait till December or January, right? What on earth are we thinking about setting goals in 2024 in January of 2024? But don't wait till December. That's even too late. Set them now. And you'll see me talk about this in a minute, how to really get ahead of it. If you haven't done it before, I'll be able to help you get a long head start. The first thing about setting goals and why they're important is that it gives you a strategic direction, your company a strategic direction of where you're going, and then enables a roadmap to that success, that goal that you set. So an example is if you think about going out to California. I'm here in Maryland area. If I'm going to San Francisco, I need to set that destination. Once I set the destination, I've set a strategic direction for my family and me. Hey, we're going to San Francisco type thing. And then we know everything in between. And I'll talk more about that, right? There's this guy, Alan Mulally, who was the CEO of Ford, sticking with my Ford theme today. And when he came in, and this is staggering, so listen to this. When he came into Ford, he came in from Boeing. He used to be a CEO at Boeing, and then he came into Ford. And when he did, Ford was losing $17 billion a quarter. It's just staggering, right? Don't ever think that because we're small businesses, the largest aren't having the same problems. They're having exactly the same problems. They just call it something different in the stock market. Oh, it's variations or whatever. For us, they look down and go, you're small business. But we all have the same problems. Whether we're small or big companies, we all have the same problems. Theirs are just bigger. But when he came in, one of the things I really liked is he said, hey, Ford is going everywhere. That's one of the problems. And what I want us to do is to be one team, having one plan and one goal that we're all going after, and that all of us are aware of that. One of the reasons you want to get a goal put in place for 2024 is so that you're giving that vision and destination of where you want to take your company to the whole company. You want the whole team to be excited about it, right? Whether you're one person or whether you're 5 or 50 or 100 people in your company, it's that same thing, right? You want to have that written goal that I'm excited about. This is where we're going. Right? You tell us about it. You throw it into the chat if you want to later on when I ask you what your goal is, right? But you want your team excited about it, and you want everybody to feel like, hey, we're all going to San Francisco. We're all going to get in the car, and we all got our parts, and we can't wait to get to Wawa and have some coffee or whatever. And this idea of being excited about it comes from having a goal early on, because that's the destination we're heading to. The other thing is when you have a goal and you write it down, you're turning it from a dream. I dream of building a small business that's going to be a legacy business I can pass to my family, or maybe it's going to be a vehicle that I can sell to be able to, have retirement income, whatever you want. You're turning that dream into a plan by just putting the goal down. That's the first step of a plan, is having some goal written down. From there, you can determine the objectives, et cetera, the process to reach that goal. And then the last thing is when you have a written goal down for the next year, 2024, for example, when you have that goal written down, you're turning a reactive way of doing business into a proactive approach to doing business, right? When you set a goal, you're actually going to figure out what will it take for me to reach that goal. That's a proactive approach to running your business. But if instead you sit there and say, hey, we're going to go after a lot of different opportunities, we're going to look for things to put into our pipeline, we're going to respond where we can, we're going to team up with anybody who asks us, et cetera, you're reactive. Any shiny object that comes in will get your attention, and it should not, right? I literally wrote down what I wanted to accomplish today, this morning, and I got an early start. I started at 6 a.m. Working, and I wrote down all the things I wanted to accomplish today. And think of this like your 2024 goal. I got 80% of them done by like 8 o'clock, 8:30. It's like, wow. First off, I probably underplanned a little bit, but the idea is I said, this has to be done today. I know I'm going to get distracted in a lot of different ways. This has to be done today. And I wrote them down and I got them going. That was a proactive approach to my day. You can have a proactive approach to your year as well. So that was the why goal setting is important for 2024. But what goals do you set? This does not need to be overcomplicated, right? I see people spend weeks and months preparing for the next year. It's just, I'm trying to think of another word that's polite, that's not crazy, but it's just crazy to me that people would spend that long planning for the next year when the next year is only 12 months, right? The next year should be simple to set. Your goal is basically around a revenue goal. So the first bullet I have here is set a revenue goal. What is your goal for 2024? In fact, if I make you feel a teeny bit bad about what you did in the last year, your 2024 goals should have been known all in 2023. Now, if it wasn't, not the end of the world. We'll get better from this point forward, right? But we want to have a revenue goal that's out not just 2024, but for a 5-year range. And this is not, a big company sets a 5-year goal. Big company or brand new company, it's the exact same thing. You're making it easier on yourself, and I'll talk more about that in a second about why. But if you think about a 2024 goal, if you're not making any money, then your 2024 goal should be $250,000. That's my goal for you, right? Go make $250,000 because everybody can live on $250,000. Some people can live three people on $250,000. But set your goal. If your company did 3 million last year, then your goal should be 5 million for 2024. I don't care really what it is so much as you just put it down, and it needs to be reasonable, realistic. And then set your goal for the next 5 or 4 years after that. So you're setting, and the reason I do this, by the way, I don't know if I wrote it somewhere. I did at the bottom. In the federal space, for most of us, we play on 5-year contracts, a base year and 4 option years. Well, if that's the case, it's not that hard for us to be setting out revenue goals. So if you think about this, if you're not making any money, you set a goal for $250,000 for 2024, $1 million for 2025, $2 million for 2026, $4 million for 2027, and let's call it an even $7 million for 2028. That's reasonable growth. When you're a small company under 20, 30 million, or a super small company, then growing at 100% is not unrealistic at all. It's just a few contracts. You just have to be good at something, and you have to be able to do the work to get the sales. But that's reasonable in the federal government. It's unreasonable if you're not willing to do the work that it takes. If you're a $10 million company, right, and you look out at 2024, then you should be thinking, let's say 15 million is your 2024 goal. And then you just accelerate that to 2028. The reason you want to put these goals down is because you're going to have sales goals in a second. And if you hit a sale in 2024, right, for let's say you hit it for $5 million, well, it's not $5 million in 2024. It's $1 million for the next 5 years. And so you want to begin to think out. It's not that hard to think out. And every year you can just readjust your goal setting for the out years based on what reality is teaching you, right? So set your revenue goals. That's the first thing. Write it down right now. Before you even do anything else in today's training, write down what is your revenue goal for 2024. And it is not hard. Write down what you think you're going to make in 2023, which you absolutely should be able to guess, if not know. Right? Write that number down, whether it's 0 or 10 or 30 million, write that number down and then write down a number for the next year. Don't analyze it. Don't get caught up in paralysis by analysis. Just sit there and go, hey, this is a really good growth, 100% growth, a 20% growth. You know what's reasonable for the stage you're at, but write it for 2024. You can do the next 4 years a little later, but write that revenue goal down because it'll be important as you go forward. The next goal you want to set, it's something I just want you to have in your head, is we want our company to be at this many full-time equivalents, right? You can do that any way you want. Part-timers, full-timers, 1099ers, but basically a full-time equivalent is 1,880 billable hours. Every 1,880 billable hours, or the equivalent of that you can send to the customer, you've got an FTE. And the reason I want you to set this goal is it's one thing to set a goal with numbers. I want, let's use me and my last company, right? Let's say I want $2 million. $2 million revenue goal. My billable rate is $125 an hour for the average person in my company. That means times 2, my annual revenue from that one person billing at $125 an hour is $250,000 in revenue. 250,000 times 4 is $1 million, times 2 is 8. I need 8 FTEs billing out at $125 an hour in order to reach a $2 million revenue goal. Those kind of things, I've done whole separate trainings, and maybe somebody will tag it in the chat or you can go find it. But other trainings where I dig down into that, but set an FTE or an employee goal. How many employees do you want working in your company this year and next year? Don't forget the back office, the people who are not billable, right? And understand that, because when you have that amount of people, now you've got a different goal. This is the size I see my company. We're going to be, 5 people, and I'll be non-billable, but they'll all be billable type thing, right? That's a good transition so that you can grow your company and work on your business while they work in your business. All right, so you got a revenue goal, you got FTE goals or employee count. And the third goal I want you to just set is your sales goal. The sales goal, I've done multiple trainings. You can go back and look at these where I really dive into the numbers of what's in your pipeline. But there's 2 things I want to talk about here. One is your 2024 needs. Generally, your 2024 revenue, you kind of should have already sold and landed sales in order to cover down in 2024. If you didn't, it's not the end of the world, right? You could have started a company today and you still got to eat next year. So you can do it, but it's a shorter cycle and it's not the typical cycle. So on 2024 needs, I always say subcontract. Just go find places where you can subcontract, and you can watch a lot of other training that I have on it. But set your sales goal. So if you want $1 million or $250,000 or whatever it is for 2024, your current sales need for immediate need is to go get that. And so that's a short-term sales goal that you have. It's really not even a 2024 goal. It's like the next 3 months goal. You need to go spend the next 3 months and land something. I was just talking to somebody yesterday, right, on a Sunday, and my kids are out of town. And so she and I were talking, and I was saying to her, she's billing, she's working with commercial customers, and she's billing, and she's got solid subject matter expertise, and she's got her company established, but she hasn't been in the federal space. And I told her 90 days is a reasonable expectation for going to get a subcontract with somebody within the federal market. And I hear people sometimes get confused, like, oh, you can't do that. Like, contracts are awarded and the teams are formed. I'm like, all you have to do is go on Indeed and find all these companies who are looking to hire people. You just find the people who are willing to turn a W-2 into a 1099 into a subcontract. It is not hard. It is just a little bit time consuming, right? But it's not hard, because you reach out, and when you find the right person, they're going to say, okay. I introduced somebody last week, and I literally said in the introduction, this person is trying to get a TS clearance, and they have open positions where they're willing to trade bodies, as we say that softly, but trade FTEs so that you can get into their agency, they can get into your agency, and they can get a TS clearance. These things happen. You just have to do the work to make it happen. And I teach step by step how to do this in other trainings. Let me stick with my slide here, though. So set a 2024 need. That's an immediate need. But then think about TCV as total contract value. And this really is just, if you've got a 5-year contract, it's $5 million over 5 years, so $1 million a year, right? That's something just to pay attention, because when you're doing sales, this is your sales goal for 2024. You don't want to think of a sales goal as a 1-year revenue stream. Oh, I need to get $1 million, so I'm going to do a sales goal of $1 million. No, if you have typical contracts like the rest of us who are in the service-based business, you're going to look at 5-year contracts. And so you need $5 million or $30 million contracts, which will give you the revenue you're looking for year after year. Again, I know I'm going at this part pretty fast, but you can look in previous trainings, and I go much slower on exactly the numbers you need as you go forward in your pipeline. The last thing I just wanted to say about goal setting is when you set your sales goals for 2024 and beyond, make sure that you're setting a sales goal for the 3 revenue streams. You can subcontract under small businesses. That's one distinct path to money. You can prime contract directly with an agency, and you can subcontract under large businesses. I consider these all 3 golden geese, right? You wouldn't just walk up to one goose every morning. You'd walk up to all 3 of them looking for those golden eggs. If you're just brand new, under 2 million in particular, but certainly if you're not making any money, stay with subcontracting under small. I have training, again, for each one of those. But the point is, when you're setting your sales goal, whether you're $1 million firm or a $40 million firm, make sure you have a sales goal for each one of these revenue streams. We're going to get this much from subbing with smalls, this much from priming with agencies, and this much from subcontracting with larges. When you set that goal, then your activity, which we're about to talk about, will drive towards those goals you just set. Anybody else thirsty? Talking's a thirsty business. All right, we got 7 minutes left, and I want to talk to you about KPIs, key performance indicators, that are going to track the progress that you're making towards your goal, and they're going to guarantee your success. If you do the right things the right way and enough of the right things, you will get what you're looking for. That's just how it works, right? And so you always have to evaluate your process and the things you're doing if you're not getting the success you want. So the first thing about KPIs is they're leading indicators. They will let you know before you ever get to the end and miss a goal. They will let you know, hey, you're on track to missing a goal. It's called a leading indicator. You want to have these and think about these from a quarterly perspective, a monthly or weekly or daily perspective. And I got them down below. But one thing I wanted to give you a tip on, I read this in some book and I can't remember what it is at the moment. Might be called the 12-week year. But I want you to think of quarters as a year. I love this guy's idea where he basically says, try to hit your goal in a quarter. You're setting quarterly goals. And so you don't wait to the end of the year to have an end of the year goal. Have 4 years within 2024, if that makes sense. Think quarterly. We got to achieve this quarter. So take those revenue and sales goals and put them in the quarterly standpoint, and you'll be able to drive forward. So that's what you're seeing me put here, right? Number one, your revenue goals, the KPIs are measuring how much money are we billing out, or accounts receivable, right? How much money are we making every month and every quarter? Make sure you have those numbers determined. You're breaking them down. If you want to get 12 million in 2024, then you need $1 million each year. And in February, you need to have brought in 2 million, and then 3 million, and then 4 million, right? That idea of watching and tracking. Number two, sales. You want to have KPIs around your sales goals. And so these, I set them as quarterly. I don't set sales goals sooner than quarterly because frankly, with the government, it's too hard, right? Things could shift to the right. Things could be awarded, but then not started. It's enough that you're measuring sales progress on a quarterly basis. But if you miss your first quarter sales goals or KPI, then that should be a massive flag to the company. Don't wait until you miss your second and your third quarter because you'll be freaking out in your fourth quarter, right? And so when you track on a quarterly basis, you really be able to see that you're on track, and you'll know how to, like the trip to the moon, how to course correct back so that you land safely. All right, number three, proposals. These KPIs, I talk about doing a certain amount of proposals every single month, right? And obviously we should be looking at the quarter saying, cumulatively, does it come up together, right? Does it all add up together? But you want to be doing a minimum of 4 proposals a month. You need to determine what your key performance indicator number is, right? How many proposals should you do? But nobody, I believe, should do less than 4 a month. That means you've got enough relationships out there where some of these are subcontracting. You're doing data calls. You're working with another team who's doing the bulk of the lift, right? And you're participating as a subject matter expert. Remember, this person I mentioned earlier, Janice, right? She's IT project management. She doesn't have to run the whole thing, but if she can come in and just talk about how would I run a Scrum project or an Agile project or something, there she is. And she's able to get 5% or 20%. That's a way to write 4 proposals when you're even making no money, right? In fact, if you're making no money, you literally should be doing 4 a month. That's something you should be targeting because that means you have enough relationships out there, which I'll talk about in a minute. Opportunities, track these on a weekly basis, nothing further. You want to look into your pipeline and go, do we have enough quantity of opportunities in our pipeline? And do we have enough value, total contract value? So I did a training a few weeks back called the $2 billion pipeline, I think. And the idea is if you're trying to get to 20 million, you need a $2 billion pipeline. The value in there, that all kind of leads to a guaranteed 2 million or 20 million, excuse me. And so go watch that training and you'll see how I break down opportunities. But you want to look at your KPI every single week on the opportunities to go, do we have enough in our pipeline? If we don't, hey, next week, let's adjust this. Let's get on track. Number 5 is relationships, right? You need to have strategic relationships out there. And I do a whole lot of teaching. The 4th step in the 7-step process is strategic relationships. When you have that, it's going to lead to success. And so you want to look every week at the relationships you have and say, do we have enough strategic relationships? Depending on your size, basically what I tell people is you want 16 strategic relationships. On the industry side, 8 with small businesses and 8 with large businesses, right? You also want them with agencies, but those are different. These relationships are people who you're meeting with every 2 weeks. 15-minute call is perfect. It doesn't take a lot of time, but you meet with them and you're talking about a pipeline. If you're not meeting on a regular basis and if you're not talking about a pipeline, opportunities we could work together, then it's not a strategic relationship. It's a great relationship. It's a nice one, but it's not a strategic one that's going to help you hit your goals. So every week, make sure you have those 8 to 16 relationships. New meetings. Every single week, you should be meeting at least one new person a week, having a meeting, an introduction call, right? Where you've agreed and come together. And this should be with agency or industry. That's totally fine. But you need to establish it, right? For us, we recommend it should be 2 to 4 meetings a week, constantly going in, constantly meeting people. That's sales. And the last one is cold calls. Every single day, you should call at least one person, if not 5, but reach out to one new person a day. It doesn't even matter if they answer. The point is reaching out, trying to reach new people that you can have meetings with that might lead to relationships. When you have these KPIs in place, you'll be able to track what you're doing, and you'll be able to see whether what you're doing is going to lead to your success or whether you're going to miss the moon. You're going to miss your revenue goals that you're setting for yourself. All right, so here's what I want you to remember as we wrap up the training here. First thing is make sure you set both a revenue and a sales goal. Right? Make sure everybody in your company understands those two. And then reverse engineer what's needed in order to reach those goals. So look at that 7-step process diagram. It's a perfect one. Ask me in the chat, by the way, if you want a handout, just say please. And then the third thing I want you to remember is that when you understand what's needed to reach your goals, set a KPI around those to measure them. I've given you a set of KPIs on the last slide that you can use. That's perfect one to be able to measure your progress forward. Whether you're brand new to government contracting or you're $40 million, those KPIs are great ones to track on. Hey, if you're in the government space and you're doing $1 million or $2 million and you want to work with us and you're looking to go to the next level, go ahead and check out govconchamber.com. You can see how you can work with us. Otherwise, just keep coming back to the training. This week, we've got 4 more trainings lined up. Connect with me on LinkedIn and check out my profile so you can see what the next trainings are. For everybody, remember, as you go into the day, government contracting, it's not a secret. It's just a process. I'll see you in the next training.